Hello, I'm Matt Williamson. What's going on at Williamson NFL? Things are good here. Little housekeeping nuggets. This is being recorded Friday before Friday Night Lights. And I am not going to be able to attend Friday Night Lights, so I'm not going to pretend like I saw it or told you what happened. So the next time I will talk to you will be after Saturday's practice, which is unpadded. I'm sure I'll get some notes from Friday Night Lights. But I've got a bunch of podcasts to do. I'm recording Peacock and Williamson and doing some other things here from my dorm room. So I will not be in attendance for Friday Night Lights. It is a very cool environment. Fireworks after. It's a blast. I've been there often. Just can't do it this year, unfortunately. Such is life. But I wanted to have a Terry McLaurin conversation with you. Again, recording this Friday dinner time. About 24 hours ago, he requested a trade. Micah Parsons did as well from Dallas. He's not going to be a Steeler, folks, but boy, I think he's like the most valuable defensive player in the league when you account for age and contract, all those type of things. So anyway, back to McLaurin. I don't know how Washington could let him go, but other than, even with Jaden Daniels as their quarterback, they're the oldest team in the league. So maybe they're looking at things like we do not want to invest in a player his age, 30 years old, at this point to an extended contract because we have too much invested in old dudes. Our roster is very old. Other than that, I can't understand why they would let him walk out the door, especially with a young, developing, super promising quarterback in Daniels and the chemistry they had last year and the production they had, even with Deebo Samuel in the mix. That makes no sense to me at all. But if they can't work something out and he's demanded a trade, maybe he could be had. I look at teams like the Chargers and Patriots. They have a quarterback in place. They've got a ton of cap space. They would make a ton of sense to me. But I think the Steelers are worth discussing, and I wanted to dedicate a whole podcast to it. So what is McLaurin as a player? Let's just start there. I think he's probably somewhere between the 12th and 15th best receiver in the league. Wasn't a phenom at Ohio State like Marvin Harrison Jr. or any of those things. So he came out of the draft a little bit older. I mean, he had to make his bones on special teams at Ohio State, and he definitely has that toughness and tenacity of a special teamer. I think he'd be extremely popular with you guys. Great teammate. Was on terrible Washington teams and organizations and quarterbacks and never complained and was still a leader and poster child for the team, the guy you put on the billboard for those teams. And really consistent, too. I think he missed 2 games his rookie year, 2 games his next year, and basically has been 1,000-yard receiver every step of the way. Felt slightly under that his rookie year, even despite some of the worst quarterback play that top receivers have had to deal with lately, of any receiver. So last year he blows up, they have a lot more first downs, a lot more offensive productivity. He scores a lot more touchdowns, best numbers of his career. Now he wants a big contract, which he'll get somewhere and he deserves. However, and I'm not saying that he's a declining player, but when you just watch his film and ignore the numbers, I think he was better in 2023 and 2022 than he was this past year, despite putting up better numbers because he's just a much better offense. More explosive, better separation. At that point, I may have said he's the 10th best receiver in the league, where now I'm saying he's 13th or 14th or whatever, as I mentioned. But still is a do-it-all star. I mean, he is tough. He has physicality. He can win at all levels. He absolutely is a first down making machine, but he's not just a possession guy. But even if he does lose a little bit, I think he'll be a chain mover plus for some time. And he's much more than that now. I don't want you to think that this guy's falling off a cliff. He's not. He just wasn't quite as good on tape as he had been before that. Just wanted to throw that out there. And I'm sure Washington's understanding of that too. And hey, do we want to invest on our old team, a guy that might be going the wrong direction on the back nine? So that's what you'd be getting. And he'd be a wonderful complement to DK Metcalf. I mean, that's a very formidable pairing with different skill sets and highly attractive. I mean, if you didn't have to give up a player in the deal, and we'll get to that here in a minute, I hesitate to say that makes you a Super Bowl contender, but it makes you one of the best rosters in the league and certainly a contender of some sort. We could argue to what degree. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything. With updated odds on the MLB, UFC, and boxing to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including live poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So at Sharky's last night, this news comes out, and there were a bunch of reporters, media folks that I like to hang with, try to figure out who they might be. And a lot of back and forth in that group of what it would cost to land McLaurin. Some of them insisted it's going to cost you a first round pick. I'm not in that camp. I don't think so. Now, the Patriots with Drake May, the Chargers with Herbert, maybe they would offer a first for McLaurin and a third. Yeah, maybe. No matter what, to me, the Steelers' future firsts are off the table. They are set aside for quarterbacks. I think his value is very similar to when the Steelers traded for Metcalf, which basically was Metcalf for a 2, and then you have to pay him. That you have to pay him thing is important. And I think McLaurin would get a very similar contract to Metcalf. And if you were to get heavy into negotiations with the Commanders, I think I would go to McLaurin's agent and say, we have compensation in place for Terry that Washington will accept. What if we give you the exact same contract we gave DK Metcalf? And we don't have to fight about one guy making $1 more than the other or $1 million more than the other. And you guys can be a team and we're going to sing Kumbaya together forever. That's how I'd approach it. We'll talk about compensation here in a minute. One of my reservations for going down this road with McLaurin, though, is they were in the same draft class, Metcalf and McLaurin. Now, McLaurin's about 2 years younger because Metcalf came out as a young prospect. McLaurin came out as an old prospect. And they'd be making similar big money. I would much rather have a staggered situation where one guy's in year 8, one guy's in year 3. You know what I mean? You know, where they're not the exact same age and they grow old together. But I also think when you think about next year's needs, even if they sign Gabe Davis or take a lesser approach to the wide receiver 2 position, wide receiver is going to be a draft day or offseason need. So giving up like a day 2 pick for McLaurin as opposed to using a day 2 pick for someone out of Michigan or Utah or San Jose State or whatever, either way, you're going to have that need on the horizon. Now, again, I think adding him makes you much more of a contender. Whether they're Super Bowl contender or not, I don't know, but I could write the story. Rodgers is better than you think. Defense is great. You know, these guys are always single covered, one of the two, and Rodgers just throws the guy single covered. So that's out there. But the win now portion would be great. And yes, this would be the first time you're really mortgaging some future to do it. However, how often do I talk about the nest? What a wonderful nest for next year's first round quarterback to fall into. Young O-line. Hopefully you don't need a left tackle. That's one of the sticking points in this conversation of trading picks, because left tackle is something you want to address in the draft if you have to. 3 big time tight ends. Yeah, a really good tight end room. Leave it that. A great pair of receivers, a young running back with a year under his belt, and what you'd think is a really good defense. So that is a great nice, soft nest landing spot for next year's first round pick quarterback, because he's going to need it, and every quarterback does. And you hope, and if you bring him along slowly and properly, that landing spot in the nest, he turns into a fierce eagle that wins 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. You know what I mean? But you want to make his transition as easy as possible. That's what good teams do. So what's that worth? Contractually, I think we kind of hit on it. It's a DK Metcalf-like contract extension, even though he's a little older. I would go into it. I think you guys know the Steelers have their first, they have their second, they have 3/3, multiple 4th, 5th, and 6th. Now, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th aren't going to get you very far here. I would call the Commanders. If the genie comes out of the bottle and says, Matt, and Mr. Rooney says, Matt, you're in charge of brokering a trade for McLaurin. You have our thumbs up. We are very interested. And frankly, me, Matt, I am interested. I'm at least making calls and seeing what's involved here. I would open the bidding with, how about 2/3? Dallas is 3rd and the Steelers 3rd. They're going to say, that's not great. How about a 2nd and a 3rd? And I'm going to say, it's a little steep for me too. How about I give you our 2nd? That's what we gave up for DK. We think they're equal players. And maybe both people say, well, we're at least in the ballpark. Again, I don't think a first-round pick is going to be a play for McLaurin, and definitely not from the Steelers. And if so, then, sorry, we can't have it. If they say, I insist on your first-round pick next year being part of this deal, even if we send you back a 3rd or whatever, no. That can't happen. That is earmarked for the quarterback. I would be very comfortable giving up a 2nd-round pick straight up for McLaurin. Now, if I have to throw in a 5th or a little spare change or Calvin Austin, okay, I think you can convince me. Like if I'm in Washington, I'd like to get a receiver back in this deal. I was a Final Four team last year with a young quarterback. And yeah, he had a Debo, but all of a sudden, I'm a lot worse, and my chances of contending without McLaurin and only adding picks isn't great. And I'm not saying Austin's a superstar, but he'd play. I mean, he'd be in the mix for them. Yeah, I think I could go a 2nd in Austin for McLaurin, or a 2nd and a 5th, maybe 2nd and a future 4th. But that's about my neighborhood. And I think that's realistic. I mean, guys that get traded for first-round picks are A.J. Brown coming off his first contract, Tyreek Hill at the height of his powers, not a 30-year-old really good receiver that you also have to pay. So if I'm correct on what it might take, at a minimum, you at least have to kick the tires hard. Kick those tires hard. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Washington will let him leave. But you guys would love him. And I think I spelled it out pretty well why it makes sense for the Steelers to at least explore this pretty heavily. He's a heck of a lot better than the Gabe Davises of the world or Amari Coopers. All right, over and out.